Climate change is a global crisis, but its burdens are not equally shared. The wealthiest 10% of the global population are responsible for a disproportionate share of greenhouse gas emissions. Since 1990, this elite group has contributed to over half of the world's carbon emissions. Meanwhile, the poorest 50% of this world's population, those least responsible for the climate crisis, bear the brunt of its devastating impacts. This stark inequality lies at the heart of climate injustice. It is a story of privilege and pollution, where the excesses of the few threaten the lives and livelihoods of the many. These figures paint a clear picture. A small percentage of the global population is driving the climate crisis, while the majority suffers the consequences. The carbon footprint of the wealthy is vast and growing, fueled by a culture of overconsumption and a global economic system that prioritizes profit over the planet. This unsustainable model has created a world on the brink, where rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and resource scarcity disproportionately impact the most vulnerable. The emissions gap between the rich and the poor is not only a matter of statistics, it is a reflection of deep-seated inequalities that permeate our world. It is a stark reminder that climate change is not simply an environmental issue. It is a social justice issue, an economic justice issue, and a human rights issue. Addressing this crisis requires confronting the root causes of inequality and dismantling the systems that perpetuate it. This is not about blaming individuals, it is about addressing systemic issues. It is about recognizing that the choices we make, the policies we support, and the systems we uphold have real-world consequences. It is about acknowledging that climate change is not a distant threat. It is a present reality that is already wreaking havoc on communities around the world, particularly those who are least equipped to cope. The lifestyles of the wealthy stand in stark contrast to those struggling to survive. Private jets, luxury SUVs, and sprawling mansions consume vast amounts of energy, leaving an oversized carbon footprint in their wake. Fast fashion, frequent international travel, and a culture of disposability further contribute to the environmental burden of the elite. These consumption patterns, driven by a relentless pursuit of more, are pushing the planet to its limits. The average carbon footprint of someone in the top 1% globally is 70 times higher than someone in the bottom 50%. This disparity is not only a matter of income, it is also a reflection of values and priorities. While many strive to live sustainably, reducing their consumption and making eco-conscious choices, the wealthy often operate without such constraints. Their consumption is often driven by status, convenience, and a sense of entitlement, with little regard for the environmental consequences. This culture of excess is not sustainable. The planet's resources are finite, and the consequences of overconsumption are becoming increasingly dire. From deforestation and biodiversity loss to pollution and climate change, the environmental impacts of our consumption patterns are undeniable. We need a fundamental shift in values, from a culture of more is better to one that prioritizes sustainability, equity, and well-being for all. This is not about demonizing wealth, it is about promoting responsibility. It is about recognizing that our choices have consequences and that those with the greatest means have the greatest responsibility to act. It is about challenging the narrative that endless economic growth is compatible with a healthy planet and creating a new paradigm that values sustainability over excess. The environmental impact of the wealthy extends beyond their personal consumption. Their investments also play a significant role in driving climate change. Many of the world's wealthiest individuals and corporations have substantial investments in fossil fuels, mining, and other carbon-intensive industries. These investments perpetuate our reliance on fossil fuels, hindering the transition to a clean energy future. By pouring money into industries that pollute our planet, the wealthy are effectively profiting from environmental destruction. Their investments support the extraction and combustion of fossil fuels, releasing harmful greenhouse gases into the atmosphere and accelerating climate change. This financial support for polluting industries actively undermines efforts to mitigate climate change and perpetuates a system that prioritizes short-term profits over long-term sustainability. This is not just about divestment, it is about responsible investment. It is about redirecting capital towards sustainable solutions, investing in renewable energy, energy efficiency, and green technologies. It is about supporting businesses and initiatives that are working to create a more just and sustainable future, rather than those that are profiting from environmental destruction. The financial decisions of the wealthy have far-reaching consequences. By shifting their investments away from polluting industries and towards sustainable solutions, they can play a crucial role in accelerating the transition to a low-carbon economy. This requires a fundamental shift in mindset from a focus on short-term profits to a long-term vision of a just and sustainable future for all. While the wealthy may have the resources to insulate themselves from the worst effects of climate change, at least for a while, the poorest and most vulnerable communities around the world are already bearing the brunt of its devastating impacts. From rising sea levels that threaten to engulf entire islands, to extreme weather events that destroy homes and livelihoods, the human cost of climate change is already being felt most acutely by those who have contributed the least to the problem. Climate change acts as a threat multiplier, exacerbating existing inequalities and pushing millions further into poverty. Small-scale farmers reliant on predictable weather patterns face crop failures and food insecurity as droughts become more frequent and severe. Coastal communities grapple with rising sea levels, saltwater intrusion, and more intense storms threatening their homes, livelihoods, and very existence. The climate crisis is a human rights crisis, undermining the right to food, water, sanitation, and a safe and healthy environment for millions around the world. This is not just an environmental issue, it is a matter of social justice. The unequal impacts of climate change reflect the deep-seated inequalities that permeate our world. Those who have benefited the least from the systems that have driven this crisis are now facing its most severe consequences. Addressing climate change requires addressing these systemic inequalities and ensuring that the needs and rights of the most vulnerable are at the forefront of our response. Hit the like and subscribe button for more videos.